Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to do this one just a little bit backwards. So this is the TL120 and I've already got it assembled. Comes in a standard box like you find with the 130s. The 150s might even come in there. Mine came in a bag. My 130 did not come in a bag. You also get two sets of props, prop screws, the battery cable, and what makes this one a little bit different, and the reason why I'm doing this backwards, is I was confounded a little bit by this one, or confused. And when I got it, I hadn't seen any reviews on it. I hadn't done much research into it myself, but I thought the battery was supposed to go on top. And as I got more and more into it, I found that there's no way the battery can go on top because you have to have somewhere for your antennas. The cables are going to be dangling out over the side. The battery, as a matter of fact, was going to be coming out over the props. So there's likely we'd end up with some prop strikes there. So finally, after a few hours, I came to the realization that the battery had to go on the bottom. So if you get one of these, battery on the bottom. Now the differences between this one and the 130, outside of you can see the smaller footprint on the top, we also can't angle the camera. It does have a bit of an angle already, and it has a piece of carbon fiber that goes through there, and the camera itself isn't very well secured. It's actually not secured at all. The lens itself secures the camera, so as you can see there, hopefully, I've added some hot glue to the carbon fiber and the camera on both sides. You also see that I've got a zip tie in here. And let me turn this around so it's not upside down. And I did that because when I received it, I noticed that both wires were hanging outside the frame. And as you can see here, the clearance for the props from the frame is very small. There's not much in there. So as I'll show you in the video, I secure the ESC wires inside with just using a zip tie on both of them. And on the back end, I do the same thing, but I use the post to help maintain that. Now, the receiver that I used is a Lemon RX receiver. It's got two antennas off of it. It's naked. There's no case on it. It came that way. And one of the things that I struggled with initially was this has a fail-safe button. So obviously I don't want my battery strap hitting that fail-safe button or, you know, shifting violently in flight and then all of a sudden the button gets triggered. But so far I haven't had any problems with that. The design differences, otherwise, I'm not sure what this is for. Maybe it's to hang on your wall. I don't know. But we have the VTX now at the front, which actually seems to balance it better than it did on the 130. On the 130, it has it in here. So I found that I didn't necessarily have to mount my battery so far to the end to get good center of gravity. We still have the whip antenna. We have the same board inside. We have the same motors. We have the same props as the 130. And you can also see that I've used some silicone tape to secure the ESC wires. I suggest using something to secure those down, just because there's a piece of adhesive under there, and if you get a heat wave or something, or the ESCs get warm, they might start to loosen up, and we don't want those striking the props. Otherwise, they're the same as the 130. Brushless, I run 450 batteries on it. I've got a host of different batteries I've tried on it, and you can tell that the if we look at it this way, the arms are pretty much straight off. Here, let's turn it upside down. That's an easier way of viewing it. The arms up front are pretty much straight, pretty much an H design, and then we have a little bit more of an angled arm in the back. Sorry, I had that out of frame. So straight front arms, angled in the back, and that's necessary in order to give us prop clearance. We don't get, even with the super wide angle camera, we don't get any props in our view, at least none that I could see on my recordings. But what you do see are these top little pieces of the frame. If I were to change anything about this, initially when I got this, I wasn't crazy about these legs. I've always thought that legs on a quad were weaknesses, and they're the first thing to break, because I don't know about you, but when I land, I'm not always the most graceful. But these props have stood up. I actually landed on our back patio a few times, and they've barely even gotten a scratch. And our back patio is cement. But the props have held, or the legs have held up well, and as a matter of fact, they're metal. I expected them to be plastic. I don't know if they're aluminum or not, but those legs surprised me. But the legs are a bit short. Let me get a battery and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Batteries mounted, and this is how I typically mount the batteries, the ones at least that have a longer lead on the Thunder Power. I haven't found a good way to mount it other than just stick it in there like this, but then I just connect it right here under the bottom. And with the battery strap on here and these legs, they're just a bit short. Hopefully you can hear that, but you can kind of see that it wobbles. So we're still kind of landing on the battery, and this is some of the thinner batteries. Maybe there is a battery 400 or 350 out there that is a little bit thinner and will work better. But with 3S batteries that I have, that's what I found, is that you're all still kind of landing on the battery, which isn't such a terrible thing. Just land in the grass, you know. That's what I do with my other brushless that are bottom battery mounted. I enjoy flying this, but the one thing that I have trouble with now, because I've switched most of my micros and other flying vehicles over to 90-degree cameras, is that really wide field of view. It's hard to see detail at a distance. Like if you want to shoot a gap, like I fly around our kids' swing set all the time. It's hard for me to see where that gap is. Most of the time when I'm going for it, I'm just kind of heading that direction and hope I'm kind of lined up. If I'm close to it, of course, you can see it, but with something this size, it's hard to get close to it and get much angle and pitch and forward speed before you get there, and then it's too late. You end up crashing. I also found that with this particular unit, I can't say this for sure over the 130. I need more flight time with it. I've flown it a number of times, but I want to get a larger sample. That I tend to break less props with this one than I do with the 130. And I'm not sure why that is. I don't know if it's because I'm more accustomed to this size, or just the way I fly it, or the way it flies itself. So that's something to be aware. I need to step back for a moment, and one big difference between these two is there's more material here in the middle of the frame than is on the 130, and I'll do a follow-up video for a comparison, but we can also get access to our USB port, which is right here. We don't have to take that post out like we do on the 130. I think if I had to pick between the 130 and the 150, or 120, excuse me, I'd pick the 120. And I only have like two factual reasons why. And one of those reasons is that I have more confidence we can take this camera out and put it in a camera of our own choosing. We can buy another micro camera, a smaller lens field. It's possible that I can just swap out the lenses on these, but I know that we just have to desolder and solder in a new camera, and it should work, and I'll probably do that. The other thing that I like more about this one is the center of gravity seems to be more balanced with the VTX up front. And then lastly, I fly this one better, and you would think that would be, to me it's strange. It's strange that I fly this one better. I feel like I can fly faster, I can shoot gaps more, I'm more in control, I get less often I get out of control, but that's a very subjective thing. I feel like I fly this one better. So because I did this one in review, I'm going to post the flight footage that'll follow this up next, and I'll show you, a little bit of that flight footage, and then we'll go into some of the mounting and where I take the top frame off, and I do a few of these things that I've already spoken about. Okay, let's get on with it. Just going for a little sample flight. It's one of many. Picked out one of the recordings that I didn't crash on. If you follow my videos, I often talk about how often I crash. I guess that makes me a good test pilot. These little Taros, they fly very well out of the box. I think the company that makes it, which might be Foxtech, I'm not sure, they did a pretty good job. They came up with some designs. They didn't just try to shrink a clone design that we already have out there. They came up with something that was unique in their own. They created a PDB with a flight controller built into it, so it really gives them a great deal of flexibility in their design. And they did some nice features like throwing in a buzzer for us, which works out of the box. You can set up a mode on your receiver to switch that buzzer on. I think the one thing that's lacking with these is
durable props. I've purchased some more props to test, but I haven't had an opportunity to test them yet. They require a much longer screw, and I just haven't gotten around to switching over to those yet. I've got an M2 screw kit here that I just need to adapt those props on and see how it flies. They seem much more sturdy, but we'll see. It actually, maybe they're just as fragile. There's been talk on RC groups of having rattly motors or some questions about the motors. I've got the 130 and I've got the 120, and so far running the same motors, I don't have a problem with them. Maybe I just got lucky and got two good sets of motors. I don't know. And then additionally, we have almost all the parts available. You can buy a frame, you can buy a replacement camera, you can buy replacement motors and ESCs. The only thing I haven't seen listed is the flight controller, but I'm hearing that FPV.com might actually have that. As of this recording, I haven't found that part listed. I know with my first one, my TL120H1 that I suffered on the second battery plug-in, the flight control / PDB got burned, and so I had to go through Banggood customer support, and it took some back and forth, but Banggood was able to get one in a package with the USB. What else was in there? It had a few other items that were specific to the machine itself. It wasn't as though I got a package of a whole bunch of parts. It was just the flight controller and a few things that were associated with it. Oh, the little cables that go with it as well. But I enjoy these. They're responsive. They fly well. I have a personal affection for micros, so maybe I have a little bit of a bias because I can just step out in my backyard and I can fly around, and I enjoy that. I enjoy being able to go for quick flights. I always keep a couple of batteries charged so I can pop one in and just head out for 10 minutes, and it's good fun for me. And I appreciate the fact that we have ready to fly taros available. So if others like me are out there but you just don't want to build, these seem like pretty good solutions. Of course, they're relatively new on the market, so if you get another 30 or 40 hours of flight time on these, 30 or 40, that's a lot. You get substantially more flight time on these. We'll find out how durable they actually are. So that wraps up the flight portion of the video. Most of the relevant information I've already given you. If you're a first-time brushless purchaser, or you're doing some research into the purchase, you probably want to watch the rest of this video because I go through some details of what I do to get the quad ready to fly. Out of the box, it's technically ready to fly. There's just a few things that you should probably do, like you have to connect your receiver. I go through the process of connecting the PPM receiver. I secure the wires I talked about. I talk a little bit about the camera and putting how to secure that. I also calibrate the ESCs. So if you haven't done those things before, you might want to watch that. But if you've done those things before, you've probably seen everything you're interested in. Okay, thanks for watching.
TL120. Now, if you've seen my previous videos, you know that I already have a TL130, and this one has several design changes. The first one you can tell right off the bat is legs, and these do appear to be metal, so that's nice, and they are screwed in with little hex right here. The back ones are unfortunately underneath that sticky pad. They are running the same motors, although let me get the 130 out here. Yeah, they are exactly the same. They're just labeled the same MT4000, and it's running the same ESCs, and we have the same VTX, but we have a little bit different frame design, and we have a little bit of a different camera design. As you can see there, we have a fixed angle camera, so there's no changing the angle, and you can see it looks to be just freely mounted in there. Let's see if I push on the camera, it just falls back. So one of the first things we're going to have to do, well, check it to make sure the picture is the lens is focused, and then we're going to need to secure it in there, probably with some hot glue. because we can always simply remove that. But they almost seem to be depending upon the wires up here holding that in. And that was another thing I saw, was when I first got it, I already kind of messed with it a bit when I got it out of the box, but the wires here were sticking outside, and if you put a prop on there, you can see that you definitely need to have the wires inside the top frame or it's going to destroy them. So I think one of the first things that we have to do is pop the top, take a zip tie or something and secure these together, and the same thing on the back, it looks like. Yeah, those wires are going to hit too, so these wires are going to have to be tucked up underneath the frame, which I'm not sure if we'll even get enough clearance if we just zip tie them here around the tail end. Whoa, that's really close, if you can see that, how close that is. Just about touches. I don't know if I trust that. We'll take the top off and take another look at that. But this is obviously designed to where the battery strap goes all the way around it, because you see on the double plates where they have CNC'd out. This one didn't have that. They are also running the same board, but if you look at the frames side by side, it actually looks like the 120 has more overall lower frame, with of course less on the top. And if we compare the tail end here, I think we will find that the rear arms are angled, looks to be maybe 5 or a few more degrees than 5 back, and that's straight across just like the others. So we no longer have the foam pads like we do on the 130, we just have these legs. I'm wondering, depending upon the battery, we could possibly even put the battery at the bottom if you wanted to, but I think, again, we're going to have to be careful. They've wired this battery lead forward, and we can see there it's going to hit, so that battery lead's going to have to come back a little bit before it comes out. So to make sure that gets clearance, let's take the top off. With the top off, we get a better look here. We can see that the camera is just kind of laying in here, and it's got a mounting spot in there. It's got a tiny piece of carbon that it looks like, if we look closely right down in here, let me hold it up closer to the camera. You can see that little whiteness. It looks like they may have focused the lens already, but it's not secured in there at all outside of just a lens cap. So that concerns me a bit. So we're going to have to secure that, and then we have the VTX lead coming right through the same area, just squeezed in between there. Obviously we're going to have to put our receiver in this area because there's nothing really at the tail. We just have a 3-post frame mounting. One other thing I thought about as I was taking this off was the antenna goes up through here, well, kind of through there. I was wondering if we could take the battery lead through that front hole as well, but without drilling it out, it doesn't fit. So are these wires, are we going to be able to push them in and bring them together? Looks like we should be able to get them in there like this, bring them together, squish them down below the top plate, zip these all together, not tight, just securing them out of the way, and then we can connect our VTX or our receiver in there as well. Just like the other one, this one will take CPM or S-bus receivers or PPM receivers. We have the remove seal after washing, which comes with all these. The one thing that I can say that's an advantage over this camera, you know, you can't angle it, but you can replace it a lot simpler than you could the others because it's not glued into anything. We just have to desolder these 3 wires and solder them up to a new one. So if you wanted to use a 90-degree camera like this one, I'll get this out of the bag. We would just desolder these, so there's no audio on this one. This one does have audio, but you could still use this on there. Let's go ahead and secure these wires, but we've got it open here. I'm gonna wrap it around. Well, on second thought, we should probably take our goodie bag that comes out. This also came with it. What is that for? Also comes with two sets of props and the same instruction guide, looks like. Yeah. So, don't have any idea what this is for. So in the goodie bag we have Velcro, another Taro battery strap, our USB connection and cable that goes with that, cables if you're going to run a different receiver, and then the one we're looking for right here. So I'm going to plug this in before I get these all secured down. Alright, let's stick that receiver in. I found that this post is directly in the way and it's making it way too hard. So, taking out the post. Long screws go on the bottom. Pin side down. Get it started. Make sure it's in. No pull test. Alright. Now we can put this post back. I'm going to move this up out of the way and then not too tight, not wanting to get crazy, we just want to keep them out of the way. I'm going to be using this receiver. This is a CPPM or PPM receiver, and it should connect directly to this with 3 pins. And before we do that, I want to secure these other wires out of the way. Again, try not to get too crazy by squeezing these all together. We just want to keep them out of harm's way. So now when we put the top back on, it will keep those wires tucked neatly away. That's probably something they should have done at the factory, or should use shorter wires. I don't mind the longer wires in case we have a need. That'll be how we set that up. It looks like the VTX is secured with a screw here and then another screw right there. Possible that you could relocate or use a different VTX, and if you have room, mount it in the middle so the center of gravity is more balanced. Alright, let's get that receiver connected. As nearly as I can tell with this, it's tight in here. So this is what I think I'm going to have to do, is I'm going to have to mount this sideways, because there's just no way to mount this in here and get clearance for the props. You can mount it kind of cockeyed and hit that gap, so right about there, but you're really going to have to secure the wires. But this is what I think I'm going to have to do. And I need to make sure I get this right. This particular receiver's got a fail-safe button on the end, so I don't want the battery strap coming through and hitting that. So if I mount it this way, I still have to push this in a bit. So I'll have to mount it about like this. Then I'll take these receivers up through the frame in a safe way and use some zip ties to get them up out of the way. So that's what I need to do next. Going to use a little just piece of foam down there. Get that done. Got the receiver connected and bound to my radio. Now we need to go into clean flight and tell it that we're using PPM. Hook it up to our USB. Connect in clean flight. PPM, Spectrum 1024, save and reboot. I'm going to power it up. Connect it to the computer. Let's see, we've got the receiver. We've got movement. Throttle, yaw, pitch, and roll. Let's see. I'll have to set up the mixers on my switches. While we're here, we know we got the receiver set up, so let's go ahead and calibrate the ESCs. Do that, we disconnect the power, go down to the motors tab, check here, we've got our props off. Master all the way up. Connect the power. There's our tones. Lower the slider. Alright, ESC's calibrated. Now you just set up your modes for your particular receiver. ESC calibration on anything that's already built, I think, is a must. I doubt they do that at the factory. So we'll put it all back together. We should be ready to go fly.